A quick reminder, as an organization at Emergn, our vision as a company is to improve the way people work forever. And we're delighted that UCAS have agreed to share their story because they're a real exemplar for us of the engagements that we have. We worked with the guys, started about 2 years ago, and they've extensively used value flow quality to enable their engagement. It's been a pleasure working with them. And they are going to share over the next 30 minutes their story. Bethanie, over to you. Please introduce yourself, and we look forward to hearing your story.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, hi, my name is Bethanie. I'm the Head of Service Development here at UCAS. I also have overall senior management responsibility as the change lead for the Digital Transformation Programme that I'm going to talk to you about this afternoon, which is also called Digital Acceleration. I have custodianship of the way in which UCAS manages change here through the business value framework that we adopted as a result of the work with Emergn, and I'm responsible for the delivery of UCAS products and services. So I thought I'd start by giving you a little bit of background about UCAS and the journey we've been on before moving into the specific case study. So UCAS is an independent charity. We provide information, advice and admissions services to inspire and facilitate educational progression in the UK. We're one of the world's only national centralised organisations processing applications to higher education. Our centralised admissions service dates back to 1961, when UCA, the University's Central Council on Admissions, was formed by universities in order to support themselves, really, to effectively manage multiple applications from students. And since then, we've expanded our information and advice and our admissions services to other routes to education, including UK conservatoires, initial teacher training, taught postgraduate courses, and for young people looking to move to a new school or college after they've taken their GCSEs, we've got a service called UCAS Progress as well. So today we see over 700,000 applications, securing places for over 500,000 learners, students at full-time undergraduate courses at over 350 universities and colleges, and that's UK-wide. This is a significant shift from 50 years ago when, back in 1966, we saw 91,000 applicants, with 45,000 of those actually securing places to just over 60 universities at that time. UCAS recognised that the landscape within which it was operating was kind of changing in a number of ways. First off, competition had increased significantly, especially in the information and advice arena, specifically around the provision of course information to students. And changes in student demand for higher education, with the increase in funding and the pressures on the number of places, has caused a fundamental shift in the dynamic for admissions. We've seen a real market being created in undergraduate admissions for the universities, with an increase in the number of universities and colleges kind of recruiting rather than selecting students for their courses. The digital changes and the traditional ways of contacting students has been replaced by increasingly sophisticated and integrated digital, video, mobile communication channels, and really social relationship management kind of underpins nearly all of the engagement with students now. And we've seen an increase in alternative options for students as well after they've completed their A-levels, with kind of the provision of higher apprenticeships and employee training also coming through. So in response to this, we defined a new 5-year corporate strategy in 2015 that described a really exciting agenda for UCAS, which looks to provide more and better services for students and those who support them, ensures universities and colleges can efficiently recruit and select the students that they want. However, to enable this agenda to be really achieved, the business model within UCAS operated had to change. So first of all, we need to invest in our technology. Our current legacy technology systems were not able to adapt easily. They were very costly, we'd been built on a bolt-on fashion year on year, and they didn't support the expansive changes now required. The cost was going to be too great to enable a fully digital organisation. We need to move to a more cloud-based, service-orientated applications that minimises the cost for the users. And this would help improve our ability to react quickly to the changing needs and enable a more sophisticated relationship between student needs and the education provision as well. We need to put customers at the heart of our digital developments, putting a larger focus on customer experience and user experience, which have been poorly invested in previously within development of the products and services here at UCAS. We needed to change the pace of delivery. The predominant transient market that we operate in, specifically the undergraduate students, required us to rethink our development and delivery methodologies, our governance structures and our processes. So in December 2014, UCAS defined and initiated a digital transformation programme, which they called the Digital Acceleration Programme. We received significant investment from the UCAS board to support this. And the objectives of the programme being, first off, redesign and rebuild all of our core products and services, enable adaptability and extensibility for change and ease for our customers to use, provide a more connected customer in a digital ecosystem. And underpinning all of this was a shift in culture, change in delivery methodologies, new ways of working, governance model changes and structural changes. So not a lot to do really here. So just to highlight the challenge we had with our legacy technologies, with how clunky and inadequate and unadaptable for changing world they were, back before 2015 we were seen investing significantly in our core. We invested over 90% of our resources in just keeping the lights on and running the core, with only about 10% of our resources invested in change. For example, back in 2012, our compliance changes, there were only 13 of them, and it took us, nearly 2 years with a significant amount of change, resource and effort to deliver that. So our new corporate strategy saw us challenge this with a target of 50-50 split. So we had to move away from this legacy platform to enable this shift. Through the Digital Acceleration Programme, we were able to do this. And in 2017, the investment in this programme is being realised, and the balance in delivering change has shifted significantly, with only 20% of technology resources invested in core running and 80% leading the way in change. So how do we transform? Well, from an organisation with a strong culture in higher education, with over 50 years of ingrained, highly controlled, extremely risk-averse behaviours, any transformational change was going to be a substantial shift for UCAS to undertake. Therefore, we needed to take a top-down approach. So led by our CEO at the time, Mary Kernock-Cook, and the executive team, a number of immediate actions took place. Literally overnight, the weighty project governance was stripped away, with reporting being pulled. The programme office was redistributed to add value elsewhere, and a more light-touch governance approach was installed and iterated on. The physical manifestation was just as important to us. So the floor space in UCAS was redesigned, allowing for more open plan facilities, breakout areas, whiteboards and cluster seating. An Agile training programme supported by Emergn, aligned to roles, was kicked off. This supported both the cultural shift and the more fundamental ways of working. And there was a view that getting over 40% of the company educated in Agile within 6 months. New way of working was defined with merging of non-technology roles into the delivery teams. For example, we now had product owners and UX designers sitting in Scrum teams. We embraced the Agile methodology for the delivery of our new transformation programme, knowing that this would equip the business with the new tools suited to this type of change. We continued, however, to employ the Waterfall methodology. We didn't get rid of it. We carry on using it where appropriate, and more specifically in our core legacy technology. So 2 years down the line, how do we know that this change of tack has suited our needs and delivered the value we were hoping for? Well, bearing in mind our first challenge was to replace all of the existing products and services with a new set of strategically aligned digital products and services, it was probably an ideal opportunity for us to reflect on a previous development that we'd undertaken on one of these previous products. So through this webinar, we're going to explore and reflect on the delivery of one of these products that we attempted to redevelop only 18 months before we initiated our Digital Acceleration Programme. Now, we've since had the opportunity to redevelop this product again, but using our new ways of working with Agile at the heart of this redevelopment. And I'm now going to talk you through this. So with any case study of this type of comparison, there's always going to be some factors which are no longer constant. However, I'll highlight what these are as we progress the call. But in essence, this is the delivery of the same product to the same customer group, universities and colleges, with the same features being required, for the same outcomes to be achieved, and using the same data asset, course data. And even down to the same people involved in the delivery first time round were involved in the second time round as well, and I'd include myself in that. The one big difference is we employed Waterfall the first time round, and then more latterly, Agile. Let me start by telling you a little bit about this product then. So the UCAS course data collection service enables universities and colleges to enter and manage course opportunity data, including the course context, fees, locations, entry requirements, duration. That goes into a system which is then used to disseminate the data to a number of products and services, including the UCAS Course Search, which is then used by students when exploring their options around further education opportunities. Now, the first digital collection tool UCAS operated was called NetUpdate, and this reached its full potential and maturity back in 2010. And a business case was created to replace this new system with something called Course Collect. The Course Collect was redeveloped using that waterfall methodology over a 3-year period from 2010 through to 2013. Now, further investment post this project was required to put right some of the concerns that were raised, and that was called Repair and Resolve project. Now, in our digital acceleration program, the more latterly newly named collection tool was developed over a 16-month period from September 2015 through to January 2017 using Agile methodologies. I'm going to call out some of the headline facts and figures from the waterfall development of Course Collect first of all. So it took us 3 years to redevelop the product, as I said, from 2010 to 2013. The compiling of the business requirements specification took 4 months and only really relied on the conveyed internal views of what the external customers needed, rather than specific direct contact with the customers. There are approximately 1,500 pages of business requirement specifications produced. There was a limited investment in business change within this project as the product was considered to be an external service and therefore there would be little benefit to internal users. The development timeline was just over 3 years, and during this time there was no exposure of any of the features developed to either internal teams or external customers, with the exception of around May 2011, so probably about halfway through the development, we engaged with a third-party organisation to get a snapshot of customer validation. We only conducted 3 user acceptance sessions. They happened at 2 locations in London and Bristol. We got 15 customers along to the sessions where we got them to play with the product. The feedback wasn't bad at that time, but you could argue that the sessions were set up with engaged providers already anyway. So in June 2013, we launched the tool in a big bang style, no incremental delivery or rollout to our customers. We went with a big bang launch into our biggest market, undergraduate. Well, effectively the phone rang off the hook with complaints from all levels in the universities, from heads of admissions through to pro-vice chancellors. The view from most was, get us back on the old product of NetUpdate. So to respond to the noise, a new project was set up, as I said, which was called Repair and Resolve, to fix these major concerns, and this required even more investment. So with the digital acceleration program came the opportunity to replace this old Course Collect with a new collection product. But instead of employing Waterfall, we used the Agile methodology. And so some of the facts and figures from this delivery. Well, the delivery went from start to finish in 9 months, with a beta launched to external customers after 15 weeks. The biggest constraint we faced was the product was replacing an existing service. So our minimum viable product would need to be fully operationalised service, supporting all current demands and service levels. We had cross-company teams sat collaboratively in the same space. We had UX teams embedded in the Scrum teams, which enabled us to take the user experience right to the heart of the development. We created and defined a new business change methodology to complement the Agile delivery. We called it BORA, Business Operational Readiness Assessment, which enables both the readiness for the change within the operating teams, but it also elicits improvements to the working practices through carrying out a kind of a BPR, a business process re-engineering, just ahead of the Agile feature development activity, so that we could ensure we built in efficiencies into the products rather than just regurgitating old practices. Customers were engaged through a variety of methods. We had fortnightly webinars, weekly email updates, and we used all groups and forums to do external presentations. The beta was launched and was updated with regular releases to add more features. To provide ease of feedback, all of our new products we were delivering, we had a feedback tab on the top right-hand side of every screen. So any immediate ideas, concerns could be passed straight back into the product owners to be evaluated. We held monthly exec team stand-ups where we demoed the collection tool amongst the other products we were building. Internally, we hold fortnightly show and tells in our conference suite, where we see regularly well over 120 people turn out from across the company, which is circa 20% of the UCAS workforce, really, providing the opportunity for features to receive scrutiny and feedback from those internal teams and really test that we're delivering the right product. Since we've moved from the beta to operationally live of the collection product, we now deliver continuous integration, continuous deployment, CI/CD, and are improving the product weekly with small increments. We're averaging about one release across the new products each week, therefore continuously driving and delivering value to our customers. If we compare side by side, therefore, the two deliveries, then the stats kind of speak for themselves. For us, the engagement focus of the delivery has been absolutely key to the success, and you can only truly get engagement if you let your customer touch, feel and see your products. And delivering features in small batch increments into a beta environment to begin with, we got such better levels of engagement rather than over-facing the customer with a mass change. On Course Collect, we saw 15 universities in 3 years got engaged, compared to the circa over 400 plus customers over the 9 months on the collection tool. 10 staff really engaged and focused on this project, and that excludes the development teams, whereas we saw 120 members of staff attend fortnightly show and tells throughout the development of the collection tool. We had no education program or communication of the methodology being used for the Waterfall development, whereas we had, circa 200 trained on the Emergn Agile training program. Business change was poorly invested in within the Course Collect development. However, that's not a reflection of the Waterfall methodology, I might add. This was a choice of the project and was something we certainly put right for the Agile delivery of the collection tool. The feedback we received from Course Collect was damning of the project, and we had over nearly 600 rows of issues we needed to put right as a minimum before the product was to be considered fit for purpose. The feedback we've received from the collection tool has taken on a very different tone, and it's very constructive. Annually, UCAS conducts a satisfaction survey to all its universities and colleges, and within the survey we asked generally about the development of products and services during that year. And back in 2013 we scored 54%. When we asked the same question again in 2016 we got 78%, so a marked difference. So I've just put up on the screen here some of the examples of the feedback we've seen across both of those products. As you can see, the tone of the feedback on the previous Course Collect product is very different to the feedback we received on the new collection tool. Course Collect was largely negative and emotionally slamming of the development, whereas feedback from the collection tool is constructive and suggests further improvements to the product rather than fundamental issues with it. If I reflect on why what we're doing today is actually successful, I would have to highlight the following. The timing couldn't have been better for us. Our stars were all aligned. We had a burning platform. It reached the end of its ability to meet our changing needs. We had a board and an executive team that understood that the environment was moving at a pace that we could not sustain without the true investment and significant changes to working practices. We had a workforce who needed lifting and were frustrated by clunky products and services and not being able to meet customer needs. Having a CEO and exec team who believed in this journey and supported dramatic changes, like the programme office being refocused overnight and the heavyweight governance ceasing overnight and being replaced with more lighter touch governance. Investment in Emergn gave us the first step up the ladder, and having a very challenging training programme organised across the company, pitched appropriately for different roles, enabled us to bring individuals together with that common approach. But it was important for us to still respect approaches such as Waterfall, and we certainly haven't ditched this approach entirely. We still employ Waterfall where appropriate, where there's change required in core technology, more likely around the compliance reasons, we actually still employ the Waterfall methodology. We had a number of individuals in UCAS who already had a passion for Agile delivery, and ensuring our recruitment drive focused on this way of working, that we were able to pull together a really enthusiastic workforce that helped drive this forward. I think having the physical manifestation of this change in both the culture and the ways of working was vital. So getting the rooms painted, putting whiteboards up, creating that environment of open plan, while still providing breakout areas and stand-up points was just as important. It was another way for us of indicating and reinforcing that this change was happening and we're in for the long haul now. We apply the Agile methodologies to our ways of working and we continually improve it. We don't feel hampered by governance in this because that's been removed. So if something isn't working, we change it. The teams actually do own their ways of working. Bringing teams from across the company to sit together where a common goal exists has been a huge change in collaboration. We now have operations, business change, data, dev teams, customer experience teams, all sitting in Scrum teams. We've built an Agile culture into our induction for all new employees, and we run our own Agile training program now since Emergn are no longer kind of jointly involved with that. Getting business change engaged right from the start was really important to us. With replacing legacy products with new ones, getting the operational teams engaged and understanding how we were developing and the confidence in how betas can develop quickly was important. Identifying those customers who weren't engaged in our Agile developments was quite easy, really. They were the ones when they received the first beta would panic and complain that it wasn't right. Getting direct communication with those customers and explaining our new ways of working and then actually demonstrating this by getting a release out a week or two later helped build their confidence levels about, okay, so that's not the end product. I see now, I understand. So what's next for us? Well, it's onwards and upwards for UCAS. We are well on our way, on our journey, and whilst we are only probably about 40% of the way through our developments, we've got the majority of the building blocks in place to provide the strategic architecture of our admissions and our customer platforms in our ecosystem. And we've now seen over 193 releases since June 2015 across our products and services and architecture building blocks. And we've effectively completed 25 releases this month alone. So we are really churning it out. The exciting bit really comes for us when we move into true Agile and continuous improvement of our products and services. And that can be achieved when we move out of minimum viable products into what we call minimum lovable products, and we release the true value of our transformation program. Thank you.
We have a couple of questions that have been submitted. So, knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently?
I don't think there's anything I would necessarily do differently. I might suggest that I would have accelerated some areas, for example, like defining a strategic architecture when trying to be agile and get features out of the door can be quite conflicting at times. So I'd have preferred the architecture ramped up sooner and broke ahead at a pace just ahead of the Agile Scrum team so that we could make better use of that rather than the conflict that we have seen on occasions. And I think then with dropping all of the governance and trying to be truly clean of all reporting for us, I think the pendulum swung too far. And we've now picked back up some of that governance reporting, and there's always a danger that that pendulum will swing back the other way again. I think fortunately, so controlling that can be quite difficult, but I think fortunately we've got an exec that remembers the pain of the mass reporting and certainly doesn't want to get back to that.
Yeah.
One final point, Brian, I probably offer is that whilst we didn't necessarily set out with a set of measures, we did have a roadmap, and we've been delivering against that roadmap. But I think maybe KPIs being a little bit more defined up front might have given us a better direction on occasions to ensure expectations are being met.
Excellent. Another one here. There's a huge shift in customer feedback, getting customer feedback early. How did you go about motivating customers to invest time in early engagement?
That was actually quite easy, really, because the customers we'd seen in terms of the universities and colleges, our prime first customer in our first set of products and services we're delivering, had been extremely disappointed at the lack of level of engagement they'd had with our Course Collect product. As soon as the opportunity arose for them to be part of the development of the new collection tool, they were only too eager to give us their thoughts on how and what the product should do. So we almost had an easy job there in some respects. That said, making sure that we reach not just the vocal ones, but also the non-vocal ones to get all opinions in is extremely important. So certainly the forums and groups that we run, the conferences that UCAS run as well, has enabled us to use the product owners to get out and about and meet face-to-face those customers and to provide that clear feedback. We've also used Survey Monkey and things like that to help improve and get feedback from it.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of ideas. But I think, as I say, I think we were looking a gift horse in the mouth, really, for some respects.
Excellent. Another interesting one here, Bethany. How difficult do you think this would be if you didn't have buy-in from the CEO?
I think it would have been extremely difficult, if I'm brutally honest. I think that this starts top down. For an organisation like UCAS, who had, as I said, 50 years of very much ingrained governance structures, stripping that out and making that a reality at this kind of scale would have been impossible. We've had a really fortunate opportunity that Mary visibly had seen Agile working at other organisations and therefore had seen the benefits that could bring in, and she wasn't feeling that benefit through the ways of working that we were adopting at that time. So having case studies almost for Mary to see, our CEO, to see at the time was extremely beneficial to us. So as I think I mentioned that, our stars are all aligned. Without that, it would have been very difficult. So we were in a fortunate position. I wouldn't want to have tackled at this scale without CEO and executive buy-in.
Yeah. Kind of a lead-on question from that is how has your funding model changed as you've engaged with your new ways of working?
Yeah, so previous to the Digital Acceleration Programme, we had a kind of a typical programme office running, what was called back then like a Futures Programme Board, where all requests for project type change would be vetted by executive and through initial business case and then further on from full business case. So very typical waterfall business case structure and prioritisation. But there was very little prioritisation of the projects back then as a comparison of the whole investment, and it all seemed a little bit quite ad hoc and a bit bespoke and not necessarily joined up in terms of the investment and the projects that we were looking at and delivering. When we kicked off the DA programme, Digital Acceleration Programme, because we had the vision and we had a roadmap and a clear understanding of the priorities, with a signed off non-pay budget for the year and an architecture roadmap, and all the Scrum teams lined up to deliver. Having this clarity meant that for the last 2 years, effectively, our VFQ board, as we call it, which was the replacement to the Futures board, has had a pretty easy task in some respects, because the whole organisation has understood and respected that the new change environment is absolutely focused on this for the future. And then UCAS executive have stayed truly committed to that cause. So any new challenges around I need resource or investment in this project have been met with a not right now, we're focusing on this. That, however, I think we're starting to see that the contest for resources, as the patience around the business starts to be tested. 2 years doing this and just this admissions does kind of wear thin a little bit across the whole organisation, especially when you've also got a commercial arm to your company. Yeah. So we're now exploring how, through the VFQ board, we can seek to continue to meet kind of our roadmap of the ecosystem, but whilst engaging in the other priorities. So we have a financial pot set aside each year for change. We've already determined the priority of that pot for the Digital Acceleration Programme. The remaining funds in that pot can now be allocated out to other priorities. However, there will be clear definitions and prioritisation measurements attached to that work. For example, it will have to be aligned to our ecosystem and be tested against that and architecturally sound for that delivery. So there will be certain checks, but effectively we've had quite a good situation up until now, but the world test will happen in the future.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, Bethany. We're just over time. There's a couple more questions that have been asked. We will endeavour to get those answered and sent out to everybody via email. There's also the opportunity to give feedback after the session. We really appreciate that, so we can ensure that we are improving these on an ongoing basis. Thank you all for attending. Hope you got some learning from that. And again, thank you, Bethany. I think it's a fabulous story. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Brian.
Take care. Bye-bye.